if I was in the back with Dynamite. And again, slight pause. And then that critique would continue. Next day, before we'd set the ring up, I'd get in the ring. Whippy would show me a few things. Dynamite would show me a few things. And then they'd watch my match. Well done. You corrected what we told you yesterday. But here's today's mistakes. By the time those 6 weeks was up, I was a completely different wrestler. And it was just so good. And I remember one of my first matches, and then I did a tour of Ireland. It was in honour of Orig Williams, who had passed away that year. And Peter McNulty had needed another guy, and Rampage Brown said, look, there's this kid, Nathan, I really like, I'm really big on him. I think you should use him. He took me over. Pete, to this day, always credits me. And again, it was such a breakout year. And then I had my first match back for Brian, was in Ipswich, Corn Exchange against Dean. Again, bit of a surreal moment, because I'm like, wow, Dean and Dynamite was my two favourites. Now I'm wrestling him. Brian, as you know, doesn't compliment people on their matches that often. But Brian came back from man Dean's match and said, that was a fucking hell of a match, boys. And it was, and that's still online, that match, if you want to have a look for it. It's on YouTube. It's still to this day one of my proudest matches, because I could just see the difference. Yeah. I was like, right, okay, just, if we rewind 9 weeks before I went on the summer camps and before I did Ireland, and then you watch me, it's like I'm a completely different wrestler. It was so good. I was, and there was before that as well, there was, when we went away, there was a half term that we went away, and Frankie Sloan was on the team with Rob Brookside. And again, both those guys, like Frankie, I've got tremendous respect for, and it goes without saying that I have all the respect in the world for Robbie Brookside as well. But it was just unfortunate that as I was coming in, Robbie was kind of going out. He was just doing the odd appearance of Brian, and he was doing the Germany shows, and he was starting to get, I think, towards the end he got his deal with WWE. Yep. But I spent so much more time with Frankie, and Frankie was, and he'll tell you this, he didn't like me at all when we first met. And the fact that when I had, again, fast forward so many years later, 2014, when I had the dark match for WWE, Frankie was at that show at Liverpool. And he came back, calls me Shirley. There's a story behind that. He said, Shirley gave me a big hug, and he said, I was kind of a proud dad moment watching you there. Again, just that respect that had been earned, and how much Frank's helped me, because Frank used to referee throughout that summer of 2010. And he helped me so much, again, feedback, and said, I saw this in your match, by the way. And I don't get this day, I see this quite a lot. These guys come back from matches and they see everybody who's watching the match,
and they never ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, the first thing I do, and especially then, was I'd ask everyone, and I'd be just a sponge taking in as much as I can, because I wanted to get better. And I still to this day do that. Like, I don't care what experience level you're at. 9 times, a lot of the shows that I work in this country now are of a high standard. So if you're booked on this show, you're booked on this show for a reason. And what did you see of my match? Right, okay, was there anything that seemed off to you? Is there something that you didn't agree with? And then, and talk about it. Again, it's always a matter of opinion, but it's just one of those things. I've gone on a massive tangent. This started with Alex.
No, it's all right. It's all right, because you're going exactly where I was thinking anyway. The point I was trying to make was, you'd done the bit with Alex. Obviously, Alex had mentored you a little bit, and you'd been working with a few other people. Now, there seems to be a big difference. Well, there definitely was when I like early 90s when I was there, because again, you had Robbie and Doc and Regal, very just, and a few other people, Finlay, everybody else. It was very different going from where I'd been doing, a camp man, as you would call it, doing the camps, to then going to All Star. Was it? I got grief, no end of grief. I got so much hassle. I got ribbed permanently. I had to carry the spanners. I had to stand at the bar and order the drinks for everybody. Has it changed, or was everybody cool with you, or is there still a very we're going to let you in when you proved it to ourselves? You proved to us that you belong here.
Well, I know which bag you're talking. That's the officials bag, right? the Spanner's bag. Yeah, well, that was gone by the time I came in. It was a lot more relaxed. But when Robbie was on the team, Robbie was still a bit, and Frankie to an extent, there was still the mentality of, like, nothing's a given. And I, Robbie, I completely got it with, because I know his story about what he went through in his first year. Robbie Brookside, yeah.
Yeah, Robbie Brookside.
All the stuff that he went through to prove himself. And I'm like, well, yeah, hold on, we are getting it easily. This is, do you know what I mean? Like, this is nothing compared to what he went through. And what was so good was, again, he wanted the mentality, like, I'm not going to torture you, but, you can't just walk into this team. And especially if he wasn't eager to learn. And, again, earning the respect of Robbie Brookside, again, I think that was just because I came back and I asked questions. I was polite, kept my mouth shut, unless spoken to. And yeah, it did, over time, because you spend so much time on the road with them, you make friends with them. And I think it was a case that they could see that I was starting to adapt, and not just adapt to working an all-star type, but working different for the different all-star audiences. So the all-star town shows are very different to when it's all-star on the camps. And Brian had been doing those camp shows for, forever, as far as I was aware. He's had that contract for like 30 years.
Yeah, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that I was able to, I can switch into camp show mode, I can switch into town mode, I can work a great match with Spitty, I can work a great match with Ligero, I've been working with Shadow Phoenix all summer. The Rumbles, like, Nathan, you're one of the first people in, but then you're the first guy out. And if you're the first guy out of the Rumble, you've got to make like a big thing of it. And it was okay. We asked him to do that, and he's done it. And it was just one of those things that I think that, because I was so eager to learn, and I did keep my mouth shut. And there weren't that many like ribs as such. There was a few daft things, like I got ridiculously drunk on Colossus's birthday in 2010, to which ended up Frankie Sloan getting a very embarrassing video of me throwing up everywhere. They're all pulling my clothes off me, pulling my bed off me, and then when I was complaining that it was cold, I got the radiator put on top of me.
That's what those tattoos are, isn't it? That's what
it was just, but it was never, and it was a case of, like, I think I had to run a mile once. I've run 2 miles over the course of my time with All Star as well. Like, which, if anyone doesn't know, if you do something while you're away that's a hindrance to the team, you will have to run a mile, and you have to run a mile in under 10 minutes. They'll drop you on wherever it might be. The car will drive on. You've got to run the mile. And it was just, but again, like, some people complain about that, and when I started going away for All Star, and I'd come back to, like, other independent shows across the country, and they'd ask me about it, and I'd tell them stuff, and it was like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, this is why I don't want to go away. I'm like, shut up, like, there's character building.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can't have a laugh in any job at all, you're just dead in the water. And there's no point in, if you're just going to punch in at 9, drone through life, and then, punch out at 5, go home, wake up, repeat, and not have no sense of humor, you may as well be dead, in my opinion. You've got to, and I think that was it, was the fact that I never disputed that. I always embraced that. I always had to laugh about it. Like I mentioned, Frankie calls me Shirley. That all started because, again, that's it, first summer, 2010. As the prima donna, I always walked to the ring with a feather boa, and there was a stagehand at Skegness called Laura, and we're taking the ring down, and she just goes, "Hey, Shirley." I went, "Shirley?" This is in front of Frankie. "Shirley?" She went, "Yeah, like Shirley Bassey, because of your feather boa." I went, "Oh, right." Frankie laughs about it. We carry on tearing the ring down, and Frank goes, "Here, Shirley, help me with this post." I went, "Don't start with that, Frank. Biggest mistake ever." He went, "Oh, really?" So that was it.
Never sell a ring. Never sell a ring.
So from there on, like, it's now stuck. He'll always call me Shirley. But just so much fun. Like, every time I think about the camps and stuff, I'm like immensely grateful to Brian for giving me that opportunity, and not just that. Anytime there was somebody who came in that Brian knew that I could learn from, for example, when Finlay came back over in 2012, Brian made sure I worked with him. Anytime there was someone from Japan, Brian made sure I'd work with them. Any ex-WWE star, any American, there's a current star in NXT, you might know, called Dash Wilder, was one of the NXT Tag Team Champions. He's one of my closest friends that I've ever made in this job. We still stay in touch. And throughout summer of 2013, we have a tag team together. We have wrestled against each other. And, again, because I knew he was going there, and he was helping me so much with that stuff. And again, I've got Brian to thank for that. And it is like, we have fallings out, as everybody does with the boss. But there's always that, when I look back on the camps and stuff like that, it's always that such joy, because I had so much fun, I had so many laughs, I learned so much, I became the wrestler I am today, and I'm so grateful to Brian for giving me those opportunities that he gave me over those years.
Yeah, listen, mate, I know you won't believe this because I only look 20, but I will be 40. In 20 days, I will be 40 years old. I started wrestling when I was 14, so people seem to think I'm like 65 or whatever. Right. But I remember going to some shows with Brian. We'd finish at Skeggy and we'd go through thick fog. I remember going to Wales, and then we'd go up to Minehead. I'll tell you a great story from I know this is about you, but it's a good story. We was at Minehead for Brian, and he said, when do you go do a double tonight and use the fucking Power Ranger? I said, yeah, of course I will, no problem. I can get double money. Well, half.
Half. Half.
Yeah. All right. And I go out, and Minehead, if it's anything like the same, massive place. Great big stage where you come out, so the Power Ranger music's playing, and they blow out all this smoke everywhere, like a lot of smoke. And obviously I've got this mask on, and underneath this over the eyes of the mask is like this mesh stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't see at the best of times. So you walk out, I couldn't see shit. I mean, I could see nothing at all. So I'm stood on the stage doing these silly Power Ranger moves, like some kicks, thinking, shit, I can't see a thing. So I start edging slowly forward off the stage, and then fell completely off my ass. Somersault, landed straight on my back, couldn't get up. I was completely screwed. And there's all the kids going around, and, Daddy, the Power Ranger's hurt himself. I was like laid on the floor, like, I was fucking knackered. I couldn't get up at all. I'd stopped the match. I couldn't get in the ring. Brian coming, fucking hell, you fucking rubbish that was. I mean, fucking embarrassing. Who are we going to fucking send out now then?
Yeah, he don't pull punches when it comes to stuff like that.
I love Brian, and the same as you, it was always my dream to work, even back then, we're talking like 91, 92, it was to work for All Star. I don't think you've done, how would you describe it? There's great workers that have never worked for All Star, but I think if you've worked for All Star, you're learning a different respect and you're learning a different style. I think that's the difference. No,
definitely. I think it's like, for example, I met John Morrison not so long ago at 4FW, and John Morrison's had an incredible career in WWE. He wrestles all over the world, and we got chatting, and he found out that how long I'd been working for Brian, and the relationship I had with him, and he said, could you put me in contact with him? I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, I'll warn you, the money's good because of the amount of work, but it's not great by each appearance, like compared to what he'd be getting across the independent scene. And he said, oh man, I'm willing to negotiate, because I just don't feel that I can say I was a professional wrestler until I've done the holiday camps for Brian Dixon. And it's like one of those, that really puts it into perspective at times. I'm like, I'm so focused on the end goal, which of course is to get to WWE, and I'm always running after that I don't often get a chance to step back and appreciate where I am. And then it is stuff like, I'm like, well, flipping heck, he even wants to work for Brian. And I think of all the guys who've come over, and they've always wanted to work for Brian. And then when I was 13, I wanted to work for Brian. And it is one of those things that, if I don't, if I don't make it, God forbid, I can always say, well, yeah, I did make it. I made it to All Star, and I wasn't just somebody who came in for a few months or whatever. I was one of Brian's main guys for 5 years.